There's a moment in John William Watershed's most famous painting.
Waterhouse, not Watershed.
All right, let's start again.
I mean, to be fair, in your defense, watersheds are a thing. I don't know why you keep saying watershed instead of Waterhouse. I thought that was just an autocorrective phrase. Let's try this again. From the top.
There's a moment in John William Waterhouse's most famous painting where everything has already been decided. The Lady of Shalott sits in her boat, the chain loosed from the shore, her mouth slightly open as though she has finished saying something to herself. She is moving towards Camelot because she looked out the window. She knew the curse. She looked anyway. What Waterhouse understood, and what makes the painting so difficult to shake, is the tragedy is not the curse, the tragedy is the choice. And the choice was made with full knowledge of what it would cost.
I believe also, according to the story, wasn't she looking specifically at Lancelot?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the painting and the story from... It was probably one of my English lit classes. I don't specifically remember, but I do remember she was cursed too. She could see the world in a mirror, I think, and she was able to weave what she saw, but she wasn't able to look away and really look at the world, and then when she did, she began to die. It's a very haunting tale. And Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower made the same kind of choice. She was the finest hunter in Yarnum, a student of German himself, a person of such skill and devotion that the other hunters measured themselves against her. And then she was present at the fishing hamlet, and she did what was done there, and she spent the rest of her existence sealing herself away from the memory of it. Not fleeing, not forgetting, sealing herself in the way you lock a door from the inside. I do not understand any of the context of what I just said. I'm very excited to learn about it.
Well, let's do a little side tangent then. The game we are speaking about today is Bloodborne, a FromSoft title that basically just goes with the theory of what if a bunch of elder monstrosities from beyond the cosmos decided to get into an arm wrestling match about who would actually call the shots in reality.
Sounds like such a wild, fun time. Such a great time to be alive. Isn't it just all wonderful and sunshine and rainbows, and don't mind all the horrors lurking in the corner or the one that's right in your face. Everything's fine.
Yeah, basically, your character is not only one of the last hunters in the particular realm, but you do get to find out the fate of many other hunters who had come before you. Some, like German, had become bound to a wheelchair, stuck tending to the new hunters. Others, like Lady Maria, realized that they may or may not have created a couple of new monstrosities, and thus she had chosen to lock herself away as the only response she could take for her actions.
I do quite enjoy stories where those who hunt monsters unintentionally create worse ones. There's an audio drama that I listened to a while ago. It's very popular, called We Are Live. It's a zombie apocalypse story following a small group of people, some of who were military, that hole up in a hotel when the zombie apocalypse happens. Fantastic show, very popular. Minor spoiler warning if you have any knowledge of that or have any intention of listening to it, because there's a specific zombie who is a man who, like, he got all these symbols tattooed on him, and one of them kind of made some of the other zombies shy away from him. So, like, he was able to survive, and even as he turned into a zombie, he was still extremely intelligent. And so, as humanity was fighting back against these people who were turned into mindless monsters, he started looking and experimenting with ways to make them worse. And he made some truly terrifying variations of zombies that could potentially have ended everything until people figured out what was going on. and found where he was doing his experiments underground. But it just sort of plays into they were reacting to humanity is able to do this because zombies are slow. Make some that are faster. Humanity is able to do this because zombies are not big enough to get into the space. Make them bigger and stronger. It's a very fun plot twist and a very, very poignant ending to the first main story. And there have been several smaller stories since that I need to get caught up on. But it plays into that similar concept, which is always fun.
The idea of that once you look at it, you cannot look away is a rather interesting idea that Waterhouse does portray as a central theme of many of his paintings. He has spent his career painting women in exactly this particular kind of position and idea. Not necessarily victims of circumstances, but more agents of their own tragedy. Luminous and deliberate and completely aware of what they were walking into. The pre-Raphaelite, and yes, this was a word I had to look up, it is in the Fine Arts Dictionary, tradition he worked within is often dismissed as mere romanticism. Pretty women in pretty settings. But that reading misses what Waterhouse was actually doing. His women are terrifyingly precise because they're these beautiful, they're clear-eyed about what's about to happen. They know their fate is sealed, and yet they're still looking onward. He found in myth and legend a set of figures who embodied something he could not have painted from life. Women whose inner lives were large enough to fill a canvas and whose choices carried genuine moral weight. From Software found this same thing in Lady Maria, and out of all the characters in Bloodborne, and trust me, there's a long list of them, I found her story was the most fascinating.
Indeed, I've heard pieces of it, and one of these days I will likely end up playing this game just because I want to see and experience these things myself. I will probably die a lot, but that's just part of the fun. I also like playing around with fate and destiny in stories, so the fact that Waterhouse and his work embodies these women who looked their fate full in the face and didn't flinch back, that's pretty powerful. My characters tend to be the kind that say, I don't care what you say my fate is, that is my choice. I decide what my fate is. I decide how my story ends. And one of my characters even beat a goddess to death that she was supposed to be sacrificed to as a baby. Took that goddess's place, and then refused to do the child sacrifice thing, because ew, no, yuck, she didn't want to. And thus created a connection that doesn't exist in that world very often, where she still has a connection to that family and to that bloodline.
Nice.
So it adds a bit of chaos to things, yeah. Her name is Latheris. She was a thief, and now she is the goddess of water, undeath, and the god of thieves.
And I salute them.
The patron god of thieves. She's really big with pirates, and her partner Wilo is the god of industry and commerce. They're both very big with pirates. You don't make a bad deal on the sea, because one of them will find out, and Latheris has sea monsters.
I've seen what giant octopuses can do to things, so yeah, I'm good to keep playing fair.
So let's talk a little bit more about Waterhouse. What's his deal? Where did he come from? And what does pre-Raphaelite mean to those of us who are not art students? I'm pointing to myself.
To understand what Waterhouse brings to this particular conversation, we need to spend a moment with the movement he worked inside. The pre-Raphaelite tradition emerged in 1848 as a direct rebellion against what art had become in industrial England. The Royal Academy was producing polished, technically accomplished paintings that felt, to a group of young artists, like they had lost contact with something essential. The Brotherhood, which included Dante Gabriel Rossetti, John Everett Millais, and William Holman Hunt, all wanted to go back before Raphael, back to a rawness and sincerity they felt had been painted over by centuries of academic refinement.
Yeah, there's something about academia that once it gets its hands on something creative, it adds an air of legitimacy to it that it might not normally have in society, especially capitalistic societies where everything is about making the money and the hustle and the grind and the working yourself to the bone. And adding that legitimacy is good, but there are some drawbacks that come with it, especially when it becomes particularly institutionalized. I'm not saying that the works that the Royal Academy was producing were not beautiful and stunning in their own right, but it's like when you get so caught up in doing what everyone says you should be doing because you think it's what you're supposed to do, that you forget why you do it. And then when you remember the why, that's when you go back to things that are more raw, more real, more sincere. Waterhouse joined the movement a generation later, after the original Brotherhood had largely dissolved. But he absorbed its core obsessions completely. Because who doesn't love completely adopting obsessions? Especially if you have like ADHD autism friends that love sharing their special interests. Then you just adopt their special interests and know a lot about a lot of really weirdly specific things. Anyway, where other painters of his era were documenting Victorian society or chasing imperialism across the channel, Waterhouse kept returning to myth. Oh, yeah, I like this guy. Circe, Ophelia, the Lady of Shalott, Psyche, Ariadne. He painted the same kinds of women again and again, not because he had a limited imagination, but because he had found a specific problem that he wanted to keep working on. The problem was this. What does it look like when a woman of tremendous capacity is caught inside a story that will destroy her, and she knows it, and she stays anyway? Because this is my life. This is my story. I get to choose, not you. That is a big mood. And there are 3 particular works that establish the range of his answer that might also lead to me getting more book ideas. So thanks, Watson.
You're welcome. And interestingly enough, yes, once I had completed writing about Lady Maria for our Substack, which Brianna will surely have it some way to locate it before the end of this show, it was what gave me the idea to actually talk about Waterhouse as well, who, again, the 3 pieces we're going to talk about all kind of play into the idea of myth and destiny, and even though it's going to end poorly, they choose it on their own terms. The first is his seminal work called The Lady of Shalott, painted in 1888, is one of the most immediate and widely recognizable entry points for Waterhouse. Tennyson's poem gives Waterhouse's subject, a woman cursed to weave and watch the world only through a mirror, never directly, who sees Lancelot reflected in the glass and cannot stop herself from turning to look. Waterhouse places her after the turn, already in the boat, already moving. The tapestry she had spent her life weaving trails in the water behind her. The candles around her are beginning to go out. Her face carries no panic and no regret, only a kind of absolute attention, as though she is seeing the world directly for the first time and finds it exactly as beautiful as she feared it would be. Waterhouse understood that the most devastating thing he could paint was not the curse taking hold, but that moment of perfect clarity that precedes it.
It's also perhaps one of the most wondrous moments of her life, because she was cursed to be in that tower and to just weave, and now she is out and in the world she's only been able to see in reflection. She's able to feel the wind she could only ever see and hear. She's on the water, she is moving, she is traveling, she is choosing to leave a life she never chose behind, knowing that it will cost her everything. A lot of the art and images and references I've seen to it are seen of the Lady of Shalott are typically around like her death and her burial. Because I believe Lancelot sees to it that she is laid to rest properly. He doesn't know who she is. He has no idea that the reason this woman is dead is because she saw him and chose to take matters into her own hands. Chose to face the curse. And she paid the price. But I think she thought it was worth it. And this art is just stunning, especially her in the solid white dress and how it practically glows against the darker background with the darker boat. And the fact that it looks like she's almost sitting on her tapestry.
Well, it would make a comfy seat, I guess.
Yeah, and makes it easier to make it her burial shroud.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm wondering, how did she end up with that curse? What's the story with that? How did she end up cursed? Who did she piss off? Or who did her dad piss off? Was this another instance of Zeus doing a thing and then Hera couldn't make him pay for his complete and utter lack of self-control? I wouldn't be surprised if Zeus was to blame. That happened so many times.
Off the top of my head, I cannot recall for the life of me. I'm sure if anywhere it would be in Tennyson's poem, but I believe it more dealt with the process of the curse than how it began. But the painting itself is phenomenal. I had forgotten how the luminous dress, the fire red hair, and just the look on her face, this just makes it a fantastic piece to look at and realize that this is, in a way, is a stronger form of storytelling than a lot of the pieces that would come after the curse takes hold.
Yeah, and I did a quick search. It doesn't say. No one knows what she did to earn that curse. And I bet there's all sorts of thoughts as to the meaning behind it and what it was trying to say. But in this particular one, in this painting, she looks a little sad in a way of, I wish I could have more of this. Not regret in regretting her choice, but regret in this is her end. It makes me wonder what she was saying to herself. What were those last words that no one's ever going to remember? Of this woman who no one's ever going to remember. We don't get her name. It's the Lady of Shalott. I have a thing for mysterious, unnamed ghost women, apparently. I put them in so many. At another podcast project I do, Game Wolfen, anytime someone references a ghostly figure or ghost woman, I probably created them. I've been doing that since the very beginning. Also, I have to admire the detail of just looking at the tapestry. It almost looks more like a quilt than weaving. That could just be the painting. Oh, and there's the little birds. Along the left-hand side, you can see these two little birds flitting by.
Yeah. Neat little detail there.
Yeah, cute little detail, and I have a lot of people in my family who do quilting, which is why I look at that. I look at the painting of that tapestry, and it looks to me to be more quilted, specifically looking at the white parts of the tapestry, which do contrast from the white of her dress. That looks more like fabric than woven thread. Or woven yarn. Because woven yarn, even when it's smooth, you can see a bit of a pattern for it. I say as I'm holding up a blanket and I'm crocheting.
I will defer to your knowledge on crocheting.
Yeah, even from a distance, you can tell that there's a bit more of a texture to it.
With the other choices of iconography in the Lady of Shalott's painting as well, such as the burning out candles, the lantern, the birds, and even the quilt or the tapestry, these all contain a multitude of storytelling hints that illustrate this world that we have very little knowledge of, but knowing her fate, these are the final things that she has with her.
Indeed. I'll also point out that the candles aren't necessarily burning out, they're being blown out.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them only look like they're half melted, and yes, they've been snuffed out by the wind or water or something, but there's one that's still burning. Now I'm wondering, could she have outlived the curse? Was the curse tied to those candles? If those candles burned down, would she have been free? But then at that point, would it have been worth it? Spend her whole life in a tower. By the time those candles burn out, who knows how old she would have been. She wanted it to end on her terms. That's my writer brain.
No, I think your read is accurate, and much like how Lady Maria chose to not look away, neither did the Lady of Shalott.
She is going to make the most of however much time she had left.
Mm-hmm. Which is beautiful.
Do we want to move on to our next piece? Or
Yep.
do you have more you want to say?
No, I'm good with this one. I'm sure there will be more ideas I'll have on it later, but we can always add those to the Substack.
Indeed, indeed. You have been listening to an unexpected art lesson about John William Waterhouse. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon. Get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.